career development in film and media. And most of my students here are juniors or seniors, obviously looking to graduate and find gainful employment at one point or the other. And part of the what we do in this class is we spend time thinking about and doing exercises on what will they be doing when they graduate, creating cover letters and resumes, doing demo reels, perhaps creating a web page to advertise themselves. So we're geared toward one of two things: either finding employment once they've graduated, or perhaps going on to graduate schools. Today's exercise, which you folks won't, to which you won't be privy, but we have the students giving presentations on different graduate schools throughout actually the world. And so they'll do presentations on that as an opportunity to help them decide what they want to do once they get out of undergrad school. Part of the interest, I think, and part of the thing that I enjoy most with this class is every week we have a guest lecturer chime in. And these will either be graduates of the film program, people who've gone on to work in the industry or not work in the industry, and they'll discuss that, or people who are primarily maybe not affiliated with Keene State, but do work in the film industry. And we've got a series of lectures. You can find those on the web. But today we're happy to welcome a somewhat recent grad, who got out and is actually producing her own independent feature. So I'd like to introduce Cybelle Mandell and ask her to give us a little background on herself. Cybelle, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tom. Thanks.
Hi.
For having me.
What have you been up to?
Since I graduated, well, did you tell them about the green lighting thing, all that?
I haven't done anything about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I know that Keene State is different now. When I went and I graduated in 2007, what they did for the film students was they did 2 short films, and you could pitch a script and you could pitch to direct. So because I'm insane, I pitched to do both, and they double green lighted me. So I tried to direct my short script, and the guy that I asked to be my assistant director, Matt Lundberg, we got along really well. We worked together really well. So after we graduated, I asked him to direct a short that I had written, and I also shot it. And then we were trying to do a full length, and we got a cast, and we got as far as our first round table reading. And
Oh, I think we lost you, Cybelle. At least audio. I'm going to toss this over to Mark Gempler if he's still with us.
and
There we go.
you hear me?
Yep, there we go. We're back.
Okay.
Yeah, you might want to back up about 15 seconds, Cybelle.
Okay, 15 seconds.
You just started to tell us about your project with your classmate.
Okay, yeah, so we got as far, we didn't get a full crew. It's difficult to find people to work on these things. And, but we did get a full cast. We had a table reading, and then we tried to set up a schedule, and it was literally impossible. And at that point, we were both really burnt out. So we just sort of put it on the back shelf and shoved it behind everything else, and ended up doing very different things. Matt was working with computers, and he went off and he got married, and I was working at Fast Friends, the Greyhound Rescue in Keene. And that's what I did for about a decade. And yeah, I didn't do, I always knew that I wanted to come back to it. I wasn't sure how. And I didn't want to go to Los Angeles or New York. And that's where most of the people that I went to school with ended up. And they are all working in various capacities. So it is possible. Most of them are editing. There's a lot of camera operators in there too. But if you want to write and direct, that's the hardest thing to do. And that's what I wanted to do. So it's just been sort of difficult, just paying your bills, living your life, and trying to figure out how you're going to actually be a filmmaker. And I'm still living in New Hampshire, and there are filmmakers around, but obviously it's not as prevalent as like Boston or New York or LA. So, but yeah, about 4 years ago, I dug out a script, a full-length script that I had written back when I was still in school, actually. And I just dusted it off, and I rewrote a lot of it, kind of gutted it, and then put stuff back in, and worked on it, and asked Matt if he would want to shoot it, and he said yes. And we've been working on getting a crew, and we have a cast, and we were supposed to shoot this summer, but a little thing called the pandemic kind of derailed us. So we're still in pre-production, and we're planning on shooting next June, hopefully. So, and we were able to get our main cast members to stay with the project. So
is this the same story that you tried to tackle right out of college or not?
no, this is a different one. I
Okay.
had, this was like, I wrote like kind of like a trilogy, sort of. Different people, but similar storylines. And this was sort of the one that's more about emotional entanglements and romantic entanglements and growing up. And the other one was more about ambition and career choices. So that one's still on the back shelf somewhere and still got a lot of dust on it. For some reason, I thought this one would be easier to shoot. Don't ask me why, but.
So you're working, you're gainfully employed for like 10 years. And as you
Yeah.
say, it's got to be one of the things, and I don't hesitate to see you folks in internships, but often internships you take on as like a junior before you've graduated. And a lot of times if you're successful, places will hire you and you don't tend to come back and get your degree. Cybelle graduated and she's out working full time. What was it can you remember a moment where you just decided, I'm working and I like working with my greyhounds and I'm doing good work there, but damn it, I'm a director. I need to work in film.
Constantly.
Really?
Yeah. It was, I never didn't want to do this. It was always there, I think. But it's a complicated thing to figure out how to do it. And I didn't want to go to Los Angeles or New York. And I just really wasn't sure how to do it. And like I said, like almost everybody that I graduated with became an editor. And I just did not want to be an editor. And they're all editing like reality TV shows because that's basically what's available. But a couple of them have made short films and are writing and are doing that kind of thing. But I made it harder for myself because I didn't really want to move to a big metropolis. And I wasn't really sure how to do it. So if I could do it again, I would probably learn a skill other than writing and directing. I would learn how to be a camera operator or something like that, because then at least I would have been working in the industry in some capacity, and I would have been able to be on a set and meet people and get into it that way.
Well, I think all of us, if you're talking about skills, editing, cinematography, sound design, it's all reliant on the script. That's where it starts. So
Right.
don't think less of yourself for being a screenwriter, because that's where it all starts. And in my opinion, my favorite part of watching these folks come up with their stories, I think that's where it all begins and what I find most interesting. I can, as you folks know, as my class knows, I can monopolize discussions and come up with questions forever. Does anybody yet have a question for Cybelle before I get too far underway? What So how are you financing this? Does Matt, and I know Matt obviously is one of my former students as well, talented DP. Does he have his own equipment? Are you renting stuff? How do you go about being an independent filmmaker in New Hampshire?
Well, I really lucked out actually with Matt. We hadn't talked in over a decade, and I reached out to him, not knowing if he would have any interest whatsoever. And luckily, he'd been through a lot personally, but he was in a place where he was kind of raring to go and wanting to get back into it again. And he had done some work as a camera operator, I think. But Matt is Matt. So Matt comes with a ton of equipment. Like when I got Matt, I got everything we need camera wise, basically. He's got some sound stuff also. He's got a slate. So we're in pretty good shape. So I really lucked out so we don't really have to, we did borrow some sound stuff from you, and we might need to again.
That can be done.
Yep. But pretty much Matt comes fully equipped. So, and the way that we're going to finance it is we are going to do an Indiegogo campaign. Okay. Which Colleen actually set up for me, but I have not actually looked at it, but I will. Yeah. So, and Colleen has, as you know, Tom, she's done a lot of work for me. She worked very hard with me last summer. She got a place for us to do in-person auditions during a pandemic, and she was there with me with Jackson the entire time. She was great, and we were there for a really long time, and my brain was probably fried after like 2 or 3 or 4 different people. And Colleen, luckily she really helped. She was really handy. So I'm counting on you, Colleen, to be there next summer, hopefully. And that's how. Okay, good. Yay, good.
And if you need, and let me know, like, what, like, when you start to look at the Indiegogo, if there's anything else I can do between now and then too.
Okay, definitely. I
am here to help.
Okay, nice. Good. Thank you. So that's like the biggest, that has been the hardest thing. And one big reason why it's taken so long for this project to get off the ground is it's really hard to find people who really actually want to do the work.
Well, because at this level, it's for free, right?
It is for free. Yeah. But at the same time, you're going to have your name in the credits of a full-length film. And you can use it on your reel. Like, you know, I think about my people, and I've been there, and I'm still kind of there. So, you know, it's invaluable experience, I tell everybody. And, you know, you learn very quickly who really is going to want to do this and who isn't, because it's really hard. It's really hard work. Like, I've had so many jobs. I started working when I was 10, and I've had a million jobs, but making films is definitely the hardest. You get up at 4, you're awake until midnight. You've got a million different things that you have to keep track of, and it's really hard.
So why do you do it?
Because I can't not. And I think about this, like, I talk to Matt on a regular basis, and we ask ourselves that question. I do it because it's not like anything else. And because ever since I was 12 years old and I first saw Star Wars for the first time, and my mind was blown. And up until that point, I had been interested in movies, but I was a kid and I thought making movies was acting. I didn't know about all the people behind the camera until I saw Star Wars, and then like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And those two guys, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, really opened my eyes to the world of filmmaking in a huge way, because there were there were documentaries, the making of Star Wars, the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I got the books, and I got my grandmother to take me to see the movie 6 times. And, it was, that's when I realized that there were people behind the camera creating this. And I wanted to be one of those people. I wanted to have the same effect on other people that those movies and other movies had on me. And so that's why I do it. It's very powerful. It's very powerful stuff. Creating something out of thin air is no small thing. It's not like anything else. And I think it's very important work also. I think what you put out into the world is very important, and you can have a really good influence, I think.
Should walk us through, I guess the first thing you had to find was at least some kind of a nominal crew. I know we have at least 2 of your crew here with us right now. Walk us through finding a crew, and then how do you find a cast, particularly out here?
Right. So what we ended up doing for crew was, luckily Matt said yes, and that was a huge piece, because he's more than just my camera operator. He really is my partner. Like, we do talk almost every week, and I just thought of another short idea that I want him to direct, and he said yes. So he was a huge piece. And then I think that what I originally did was I put signs up around campus, and I put signs up around Keene, and I got literally 1 response. And it was Zachary Ryu. And I met with him, and he wanted to help, and he brought a couple of people on board, and I met some other students through him. We ended up losing quite a few of them for various reasons, but and then what we did was I asked you if Matt and I could come to your class, and we stood up in front of your class and 1 or 2 other classes, and we just talked about the project, and we said we really need people. And I got Christy, I got Jackson, and I got Dylan from those meetings. And then I got Colleen, because Colleen walked into a crew meeting one day with Christy, I believe. And I was like, I don't know you. And Christy said, you could use some more help. And I was like, sit down. And she just kind of, she had really good ideas, and she just kind of jumped in feet first, and she's been really great. So that's kind of the core of the crew. And then the way we got our sound guy was through casting. We wanted to cast locally, but we weren't able to find people. I'm not sure why. And then the pandemic hit, and it was really difficult, because all anybody could think about was, we have to stay home and don't breathe on me. So nobody wanted to audition for a movie. And I really didn't want to do backstage because I don't have that much experience directing, and Matt hadn't done this for a really long time, and I just wanted to stay away from professional and semi-professional actors for that reason, but we couldn't find anybody else. And so I put an ad in Backstage, and we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of responses. And
for those people who are watching this, can you explain to them what Backstage is?
Okay, Backstage, I think it's a paper magazine, but it's also online, and it's basically casting. I think you can find crew on there also. I'm not entirely sure. Mm-hmm. But so I just put an ad in, and I put a description of the film and the characters that we were looking for. And I said, send me your resume and your headshot and a demo reel if you have it. And I spent so many days just sifting through, because you'll get people who just want to be in a movie, and they don't care if they don't fit the description of any of the characters whatsoever. But luckily, we really lucked out with Backstage, because we got some real gems. And we ended up, there are actually a lot of actors in New Hampshire, which is handy. And we ended up casting 2 of them. And I got a response from somebody named Oliver Mitchell who wanted to play a supporting role. Yeah, and we started to email back and forth, and he said, I think I went to school with you. And I was like, Bill? He said, yeah. And so Bill Mitchell ended up auditioning to play a supporting character. And he's like just 15 minutes outside of Keene. And when we lost our initial sound guy, I just put out feelers everywhere. I said, if anybody knows anybody who wants to learn how to do sound, please let me know. And Bill said, I guess if it comes to it, I could be your sound guy. And that's how we got one of the best sound guys that there is.
There you go, right?
So again, we really lucked out. And with the auditions, we did, or Colleen set up in-person auditions. We did it in Nashua, and we saw about 12 people, I think, 12 about. And two of the girls that I ended up casting are from New Hampshire, and one of them, I was getting to know the people that I invited to the audition just via email through the pandemic. And so I had some certain people in mind of who I thought I was going to cast. And don't do that because you really never know. And literally the day before we had our in-person auditions, I got a last-minute application from a girl who wanted to play the character of Emily. And I already had a really strong Emily in my head. And I thought, there's no way that this girl is going to be able to make the auditions. They're literally tomorrow. So there's just no way. But she was absolutely stunning, and I liked her reel a lot, and she's in New Hampshire. So I just reached out to her and I said, here's the script. If you get a chance and it's something you're interested in, we'll see if we can get you in tomorrow. We'll just squeeze you in somewhere. What ended up happening is another girl who was also a front runner dropped out. So we just put her name is Audrey Latino. We just gave Audrey that slot. She walked in, I liked her right away. I had her audition for the lead, which wasn't quite working. We had like 10 minutes left and she had to go to work. So I said, just really quickly, let's have you audition for Emily, because that's who you wanted to read for. And I think she kind of blew us all away. That was the impression I got from the feedback from Colleen and Jackson. She's like, Emily, the character, is a real badass. Audrey Latino, the girl, is a sweetheart. She's really sweet. She's sort of soft-spoken. And when she read for Emily, this badass came out, and she was just perfect. She was Emily. So, and she hadn't even been in the original lineup, and she just got her application in literally the day before. So we got really lucky. I think that we've got a really good cast. And we did shoot a couple of shorts for the Indiegogo campaign. So we got to work with Bill. We worked with Madison Oakley, Madison Crawford, and Audrey, and they were all really good. So I think we got a really solid cast, but we were really, really lucky.
Good. Questions, anybody yet on the process? Curtis, are you going to jump in?
Yeah. How'd you go through the process of like really going through the auditions? What did you have the people who are auditioning like do and like bring with them?
Okay, so that's where the experience being double green lighted was really, really handy, because basically when I directed the senior project at Keene State, we got to go down to New York City and hold real auditions in a space and with real professional New York actors. I was scared to death, but it was the best experience of that entire year. And so I kind of knew how to do it from doing that. So that was basically, we just did the same exact thing. We got the responses from backstage. I said, Colleen, you got to find us a space. She did a great job. And what we ended up using as a space, because this is still during the pandemic. So we found a space that were willing to let us come in. And I let them know we're going to have everybody 6 feet apart and everybody's going to wear a mask and we're going to be really careful. And we found, I think it was the Marriott it was a hotel. I don't remember. Okay, thank you. And so we basically, it was like a conference room, and Colleen Jackson and I got there early. I sent the invitations via email. I gave everybody a time slot, all the actors a time slot. I said, here are the sides that I want you to look at on the day that I'll have you read. And we got there an hour early, so we set up the tables. We made sure that we were all distanced at least 6 feet. We set the chairs up so they were 6 feet apart. And then, so we had the schedule in front of us. We had Jackson there with my camera shooting the auditions. And then it started at 10 o'clock, and just one after the other, we just had everybody come in, talk a little bit about themselves, introduce themselves. And then we had them read. And then mainly what the day was for was, this is basically an ensemble piece. So I needed to see all the different combinations. So that's basically what the day was spent doing. And by the end of the day, we had our leading lady, we had our leading man. And then, the rest was pretty easy to figure out. And then you just send emails to everybody that you didn't choose, and you tell them how much you liked them and say, thank you very much for coming. And I appreciate, because everybody had to drive, because one woman drove 5 hours to audition. She's in upstate New York. She drove 5 hours and she ended up not getting the part. But you just got to steel yourself, and you know that that's part of it. And I like her a lot, and we're still in touch. And I said, I'll use her in the future, definitely. So you just let everybody know, you say thank you, and let them know that you're going to go a different way. And then the ones that you chose, I like to call, because I like to hear how excited they are. So you just give them a call and you say, all right, you're it. So here's what we're going to do next.
That's what I always tell my crew, is that the director gets to call the people you want to cast, and the assistant director calls the people that you don't want to cast.
Right.
So you don't have to deal with that. So obviously, as you say, it's great fun to be able to call somebody up and say, hey, we really liked you. Would you accept the role? Did you call those folks that you ended up not casting, or did somebody else do that for you?
I had to do that.
What was that like?
Awful.
Why?
It was awful. Just because I had sort of built up a relationship with everybody via email, because we had, I think I put the ad out in like February in Backstage, not knowing that we were going to have a pandemic. And then we didn't, Colleen, when did we do the actual auditions? June?
Yeah, it was like, I want to say around June 14th or the 21st.
Right. Okay. So it was, so there was this huge gap of time, and I'm emailing these people back and forth. So I'm getting to know them all, and I liked them all a lot. And I had in my head who I thought I was going to cast, and don't do that. That's a mistake. So it's really difficult. But as I talked to Matt through the whole process, and I told him that I made a conscious decision that I wanted everybody who came to audition to walk out of the audition feeling good about themselves, so that no matter what happened, if they didn't get the part, they would still feel good about the process. And I got some really positive, nice feedback from the people who really enjoyed the day. And they liked Colleen and they liked Jackson, and they really enjoyed the process. So when I told them we were going to go a different way, it wasn't that awful for them. I think it was worse for me than it was for them, in all honesty. So I mean, you don't want to tell somebody that, thank you for driving 5 hours, really appreciate it, you don't get the job, that's never going to be easy or fun.
You commented that you had, I forget exactly what you said, but it was something similar to, you kind of were planning on casting this one person in the role, or you knew what you wanted from the role. As a director, is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for a particular type of person to inhabit the role, or are you kind of more open and they come in and you just see what they give you? How do you direct your auditions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I definitely have a type in mind for each part. Like I see I like envision them in my head, what they would look like physically, how they would talk, how they would present themselves. But, the girl that we ended up casting as, say, Natalie, I did not picture Natalie like that at all. This girl, her name is Madison Crawford, and she's also in New Hampshire, and she's stunning. But she did a pretty good job during the audition, but I was going back and forth between her and another girl who I sort of had been thinking I would probably cast. But because Madison Crawford lives right down in Milford, she was able to get together with me. And the fact that she was willing to do that, and the fact that she really wanted the part, and she worked in 90-degree heat with me on the part, and she just really let me know that she really wanted to do it. And she also, and this was something that I was thinking might happen, because there's a movie called The Commitments, and the three backup singers, the three women, when they auditioned, I remember hearing an interview with the director saying that they had sort of gravitated to each other, and they were the three that ended up being cast in the movie. And so I kind of, in the back of my head, I was like, well, that would be kind of neat if that happened. I don't expect it to, but that would be interesting. And that's literally exactly what happened. Like, everybody, from what I heard, everybody was getting along really well out there, which is good because they had to wait a really long time. And it was a lot of coming in and going out, and just a lot of different combinations of different people. But they all had a good time. They all got to know each other. And the three girls that we ended up casting all really liked each other a lot. They exchanged phone numbers, and they just became friends during the audition day. And so, I mean, it was kind of natural to cast them as these three friends. So that's what I ended up doing.
Is that something you had in the forefront of your mind? Because one of the things that I always comment on, and actually James Thielman, one of your fellow grads, he's an editor, but he commented very specifically on the fact that as crew, you need to get people that you want to work with and that are fun to be around, because you're spending 18 hours a day with them. Was that something that you had specifically in mind, or is that something more that kind of developed with this group you were just talking about in particular? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There you go. You still with us?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. I just need to hear you. So I missed about 10 seconds of what you just said.
Was just wondering, because you commented on how this group, these three women, it sounded like, really ended up kind of gelling into a real cohesive group. And that's obviously something that a couple other guest speakers have commented on, that how important it is when you're spending 16, 18 hours a day on set, that you like the people that you're with.
Yeah.
Was that something you thought about going into it, or did you just kind of find that developed with these three in particular?
That was something that I definitely thought about going into it, and I didn't expect it to happen. So when it did, I was sort of delighted. I mean, and they told me after we cast Madison Oakley as the lead during the audition day. Like, I knew she was it.
Really?
So yeah, I liked her a lot in her demo reel. And when she walked in, I was like, oh God, please let her be able to act, because this could be it. And she just was the character. And I just liked her personally a lot.
So what would you have done if Angelina Jolie comes in the next? You give it to this woman, and then
yeah. Well, I had seen everybody. We had seen everybody. everybody.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. We had seen everybody and we had seen all the combinations.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had exhausted all our possibilities. Yeah, so, and I knew it was going to be her, and I wanted to tell her because I wanted to, knowing that it was her, I wanted to see her with all the potential Emilys, all the potential Natalies, all the potential Glens. So that's why I let her know, and she would have caught on anyway because we kept bringing her in. We kept bringing her in as Siobhan. So so we cast her on the day, and we cast the girl for Emily the next day. And I don't remember which one told me. It might have been Madison Crawford, who we cast as Natalie, told me that those three had exchanged phone numbers. And right after the auditions, they were communicating and saying, "Did you get it? Did you get, which part did you get?" So I was like, "Oh, for God's sake!" Well, but luckily they were all good, and they work together, and that's really important. And Colleen probably remembers this. I had the three of them read for the parts that I eventually gave them in the longest scene in the movie, where all three are interacting as those three characters. And it was amazing. Like, it made me want to make the whole movie because they were so perfect. They were all perfect in their parts. They were all perfect in their interactions together. They really hit it out of the ballpark. So that also really went into my decision.
Great. That's got to give you and your crew, again, when you're doing this just out of the love of the project, that's got to give you some motivation.
Yeah.
So you can see some quality going into it.
Yeah. And all three of them said that they really loved the script, and that also weighed in for my decision, because as I told everybody that I was interviewing to be on the crew, I said, you don't have to love it, but you can't hate it, because it's a full-length film. It's going to be really long days, and it's going to be hard. So, you've got to at least feel some motivation about the project that we're all trying to pull off.
Questions from anybody?
Just to chime in here, I will say the actresses had great chemistry. So
Hi, Dylan. I can't see you, but I can hear you. I know that's you. They did, didn't they?
yeah, and it was great. I think they fit all the roles perfectly.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that day was that was a good day. And you're right, like, just because, like, going out there in the hallway, like, seeing the girls, like, interacting. They were already, like, forming connection, like, even before they came in to do auditions.
Anna, were you going to ask something?
I did have a question. How long do you think shooting will go for? Like, how much shooting do you plan to do?
I think it's going to be a solid month. I know that I think it's the average page to shoot a day is 5 on a full length, I think. So I was aiming for 4. And there are some days in the schedule that we'll shoot less because they're more complicated. There's a lot of outdoor stuff. There's a couple minor stunts, that kind of thing. So the shooting schedule was about one solid month.
Do your actors have regular jobs, or are they going to be able to take off, extended time?
Yeah, and Madison Oakley, our lead, she was fantastic. When I said, are you going to be able to do this? Because I know that she worked, and she said, are you kidding? This is what I want to do. If I have to quit my job, I'll quit my job so I can make this movie. So that's always that's always helpful. But they all have day jobs, but they're all like, this is what they want to do. They all want to act. So their day jobs are very flexible, I'm guessing, because they all take time off. Like Audrey Latino and Madison Crawford are working constantly. They also model, and they're also both full-time students. So they've got it figured out.
Amy, were you leaning in to ask a question, or did I just think you were getting more involved in?
I too have a question. I don't know. So what do you expect the outcome of this film would be? Like, I know you haven't said much about, like, probably can't, about what it's about and stuff like that, but like, if you have any expectations, like where it'll be released, things like that, you know.
Depending on what happens with the pandemic. I mean, primarily when I started thinking about doing this project, it was originally supposed to just be a learning experience for myself and everybody involved. But having these actors on board, and the fact that I was able to get Matt, who's very talented, and Bill, who's very talented, I think that we will see what we have at the end. And at the very least, I hope that it's something that everybody can put on their reel. I mean everybody, like me and just somebody who's just a PA who goes to get coffee a couple times. And if we feel confident about it, I would like to submit it to festivals. If we have festivals at that point.
When, depending on if you get success at a festival or even if you don't, there are a lot of venues with internet streaming, with the Hulus and the Netflixes and even the Amazons.
Right.
There are ways to, it's like anything else in getting a job, it's getting contacts,
Right.
finding a way to get somebody to watch your film. But that's something, and you know Matt Newton, I assume.
I don't. I know the name, but I don't think I've ever actually met him.
He's a grad of ours, and he's the director of the New Hampshire Film Commission,
Right.
and I'm sure he has a lot of connections. We got a lot of connections. A lot of our grads have stuff already up on Amazon, so there's certainly ways to get your stuff screened. But that'll be the next step, as Amy, I think rightly says. That was going to be one of my questions: is where are we going to screen this? Once you
Right.
get it screened, somebody watches it, and all of a sudden, you got a 5-project deal someplace. So that's obviously what we're hoping for.
Love that. Yeah.
Other questions, folks? Kick them in. Asking questions. You talked about most of your production crew. Do you have an editor on board?
If Nick Schwartz, who also, for you folks who don't know Nick Schwartz, I know Tom knows Nick.
Sure.
He has been working as an editor in Queens, and I have asked if he would be interested in editing it, and he would like to, if he has the time. He is editing, and I graduated in 2007, so pretty much everybody that I graduated with is married and has 1 or 2 or 3 kids. So yeah, and he's got 2 kids and a wife, but if his schedule allows, then he's going to edit it.
Great. Again, as you say, and this is not to denigrate the editorial profession, because I've suddenly found myself editing 2 rather lengthy documentaries, and I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of us out there, so I'm sure
Yeah.
if Nick can, and Nick's real talented, I'm sure we can you'll find somebody else
Yeah.
to do that for you.
Yeah.
What about like composers on this one project that I'm doing for this actor? I put an ad in newenglandfilm.com and got a really solid composer who is working for free. So we have original music. There's lots of ways, as you, I think, have already found. And I was going to ask you this: so you put it in an ad for your cast in the trade,
Yep.
and you got an overwhelming response.
Yep.
Did you ever go through? I had, and I learned that this is just how they do it. They've got to start and work for free to work their way up and get something for their reel. But my initial reaction when I was a grad student was how sad that I had, and this was for student films, I had 100 people submit resumes and demo reels to work on a student film, but yours is a feature.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like, it was overwhelming too. I mean, and like I say, that we saw maybe 12 people and we really lucked out. We have like 5 core characters in the film.
Okay. Oh, we're losing you. Might have to rebuffer. Hang on. We'll see if Cybelle can rebuff her or if this is an issue on her end. There we go. You're back. Back us up like 10, 15 seconds.
Okay, 10, 15 seconds. What was I saying?
We were talking about how, just the fact that you were inundated with applications to work for free, but
Yeah.
even granted, this was a feature.
Yeah, it was, and I don't know what the final tally was, but it was ridiculous. I just remember that, like we set up we're Candle Dragon Studios. That's our studio name. And we set up, or Zach set up an email, and it was just full. The inbox was full every single day for days and days and days and days. It was really ridiculous. And I had specified that we weren't going to have a huge budget, so you really needed to be local. We got people from Russia wanting to be in this movie. We got people from Los Angeles.
Oh. Hang on. We have a bandwidth issue. You folks all with us? Okay.
Yeah, it's the connection on Cybelle's end. I can see that it's fading in and out.
Okay. Cybelle, you back with us? There we go.
Yeah, I can't see you guys or myself, but
Sorry.
I can hear you so far. I can still hear you. But yeah, it was a full-time job for a while there, just going through the applicants. It was ridiculous.
And did you just completely disallow these people from LA, or did you even entertain the notion of, hey, if they want to provide their own transportation out here?
No. The one that was farthest away, that was 5 hours away in upstate New York, I went back and forth on her, but I liked her so much, and I really could see her in the part. So I said, I think I even probably said to her, you know where we are, and you know how far you're going to have to come for a part you might not get. And she did not care. She loved the script. She loved the part, and she wanted to try out. So she did. But everybody else was either from New Hampshire or from Boston.
Okay.
Or Connecticut. There was one Connecticut.
Other questions, folks?
Yeah, I got another one.
Yep.
What was your experience like directing the capstone your senior year?
I can't see you, Tom, but I'm sure you're smiling.
No, I've still got it. The Road to Ruin. That was the name of the film, by the way, folks. Not that.
Okay, I'll try to be succinct, and it's difficult to be. It's difficult to just. It was difficult. I think that I have since thought that I should have been green-lighted to be the AD on the other project, or the camera on the other project, because I think that part of what the problem with my capstone was I was sort of biting off more than I could chew. I didn't have a lot of directing experience, and I had potential, but so many things went wrong. It was hard to believe. And I knew that I was going to be doing this tonight, and I was thinking back over that experience, and I can't even remember even half of the things that went wrong. I mean, we had cameras that would break, and we would be out in the rain, and we would have an actor from New York who was in a snit because our camera was breaking. And we got major attitude from a lot of the New York talent. And we had a crew that was difficult. Matt was great. Matt was my assistant director, and it was basically he and I in the trenches every day, all day, doing our best, trying to get the thing to work. Trying to get people to do the jobs that they thought they wanted to do. Trying to deal with the interpersonal dramas that were constantly happening. And I was pulled off of task frequently throughout the year. So, you know, my work certainly suffered. And I remember saying to Matt one day that I feel like I'm failing every single.
Yours was also the first project that we greenlighted, and we were aware of this, and we were aware of the challenge that you would face of integrating special effects into a film that we ended up, you know, kind of merging film and, as I recall, video.
On a day. Are you still there?
Yeah. How about you? We'll wait for you to buffer up. I think I'd mentioned this briefly to the class beforehand, but again, Cybelle's we shot primarily on film, but hers was kind of fantasy based around the Wizard of Oz, and we had a lot of plate and matte photography that was brand new to a lot of the students, and so that was something that you experimented with.
Yeah, it was not an easy film to make. There were special effects that we didn't know how to pull off, and there was so much green screen, and yeah, it was difficult. It was a satire of the film industry based on the framework of The Wizard of Oz, and it was great on paper, and everybody really liked the script. But for a student crew and a very green director to pull it off, it would have been kind of a miracle if we had been able to do it, I think.
How do you feel you would? Do you feel? Well, did you learn anything?
I think I must have. You know, thinking back on it, it's. I think that I'm in a much better place now, and maybe that's why it took me so long to get back to doing this. Because this is really, really hard. And also there are so many people that want to do this, and that's really daunting. And I mentioned that to Matt when I was seeing these demo reels. I was like, literally everybody makes movies these days. Like, how do you differentiate yourself? And he said, well, you make the best one. And I mean, that's not daunting at all, is it? But I think that I probably did learn a lot. I think I probably learned.
Oh, we're losing you again. Welcome to New Hampshire. Hang on. Let's see if we can get Cybelle. There you go. What did you learn? We lost you again.
Okay, sorry. I think that I was sort of, the things that I did learn, I was not ready to implement.
Okay.
At the point in my life where I was in 2007 when I graduated. I did learn some practical things, and I learned that I really like actors. I learned that that actors blow my mind, and I really like working with them. Like I said, the experience going down to New York City was the best part of the entire year. And that was eye-opening for me because I'm an extremely shy, quiet, introverted person. So the fact that I was able to go to New York City and have real professional actors walking in and looking at me terrified and expectantly, I saw that I can do that part of it. And I think I probably learned what doesn't work. And I learned what my weaknesses are, I think. And I also probably at least started to learn where my strengths were. And seeing how I'm going about doing this project now, so many years later, I think that I'm in a stronger place, and where I can sort of start to implement what I did learn, and I can start to trust myself more as a director. And because it was really daunting being put in charge of like a 12-person crew of like your peers, that I think was really difficult. But now I think I'm more comfortable being in that position of authority, and I feel like I know what I'm doing more, and I trust that more, if that makes sense. And just also the response, like a friend of mine said to me once that we need successes. And she was very right. You really do. It's not enough for you to love film and to think that you want to be a filmmaker. I think that you need to have some feedback sometimes from some places that lets you know that you've got something, that you will be able to do this, that you do have some kind of talent in this area. And the reactions that I got just to this script from people who are basically professional actors, that really helped. That really helped me. And their confidence in me. And one woman during the audition, she said, "I trust you." And that's no small thing to have somebody tell you that. And that meant a lot. And I think being a director is a huge part of it is learning to trust yourself. And that doesn't mean that you think you're all that and a bag of chips. It means just knowing yourself, knowing your shortcomings, knowing your weaknesses, but knowing that you can improve and knowing what your strengths are, and being comfortable being in that position.
You comment on it being important that you get feedback and that you find successes. I always try to hedge my questions to have you folks answer it, but there's really only one way that you're going to have a success, and what is that?
To risk failure?
Absolutely. You got to go out and try. And I think every one of our guests has mentioned that in some way, shape, or form, and that if you can you learn from your mistakes. And I think, again, I think the fact that obviously deep inside you was this desire to direct. And so for a decade, it kept eventually like kind of talking to you, little voice in the back of your head. Because as you say, you've mentioned several times how both difficult, but I'm hoping also rewarding the process is. What is it that you find difficult? I don't think, I'll keep answering my own question. I think anybody who's watching this and maybe just goes to movies just for fun, as we're discovering, and Cybelle, you already know, how amazingly hard it is to put together a film. Can you comment on that? Both your graduate, your capstone, your senior film, and putting this one together. What is it that's so time-consuming and difficult?
Oh, goodness. It's just, I think there are so many different aspects. It's keeping so many different balls in the air. It's making sure that so many different people, so many different personalities are doing what they're supposed to be doing and the time that they're supposed to be doing it. And I mean, I think it's so all consuming because there are so many different aspects that you have to keep track of. Like, it's just the most complicated thing there is. Like, my father is an artist, and it's him by himself sitting in a studio in front of an easel. And I talked to him about filmmaking because filmmaking is also an art, but we talk about how different they are. He said to me this summer when I was talking to him on the phone and I was having a nervous breakdown, because of course that goes along with it as well. He said, "I'm glad I'm a painter." So, I mean, it's so many different personalities and so many things that need to be done properly and on time. And it's, it's really insanity on toast, but it's really the creative part of it is just it's the most amazing experience, like I said, to create something that didn't exist before, and to create something of quality that didn't exist before, and to create something that people respond to and that people get something out of, that people get something positive from.
I want to be sure to talk to you maybe during production, because as a director, that first time that you've got your crew there and your cast there and you're shooting your scene and it all comes together is going to be so rewarding for you. I think that's going to give you the motivation to continue through the rest of the month.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so.
You talked about, and I asked about your schedule, and
Yep.
you said, so you're looking to shoot, I mean, maybe obviously not 30 days solid, but your actors are able to take off time and you're going to shoot it all in one chunk?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. How are you housing them? How are you feeding them?
Okay,
Anything like
yeah.
that?
Those are things that we need to, yeah, those are things that we need to get figured out. And that was one of the reasons that we decided to put it off, was because trying to do both of those things in a pandemic just was not happening.
Sure.
Restaurants were closed. They didn't want anything to do with us. Locations were giving us a hard time because nobody wants a group of people coming in when we're all supposed to be social distancing. And I started to look into Airbnbs in the Keene area to put up the actors, and I got shut down multiple times because nobody wanted people in their house. Nobody wanted people on their properties. So that's what finally made me think maybe we should pull the plug and do it next year. And that, and plus the fact that Matt is probably radioactive at this point because he's been living and working in Los Angeles in the middle of a pandemic doing an essential job. So we were like, maybe we should put this off. So we're gonna hopefully the Indiegogo will be in March. We shot a couple of shorts that haven't been cut together yet that we're going to put on there. We're going to make a poster, and we are going to do the Indiegogo campaign. So hopefully that will fund this. We've got a lot of people doing a lot of stuff, including myself, for free. And then we're going to put the actors up in an Airbnb and with a refrigerator. And we're going to stock the refrigerator basically because I realized that would be easier and cheaper than trying to get food from restaurants. And 2 of our actresses are solid vegans. So yeah, just be easier for them to tell us what they want. We'll go get it. We'll put it in their fridge. So, and then we are still going to look at because another thing that I remember from the capstone was I remember our production manager bringing in a garbage bag full of bagels one morning from Panera. So we're still going to look into as much free food as we can.
Sure.
Getting donated.
Always free. Free is always good. Other questions, folks? Cybelle's been more than generous with her time. We've had her for an hour.
My restaurant is still able to provide free food, so
There you
I
go.
got you covered there.
I'm sure we've got some other places that'll be glad to donate to you as well.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Questions, folks?
I actually have a question that I was curious about when you were talking about your capstone, and then also back when we did the auditions, I was curious about this. Your movie that you're talking about with the like the satire in the industry for The Wizard of Oz, and even back then for that the actress that came from New York, was that the same movie?
Yes. Is that you, Colleen? I can't see anybody.
Yeah, that's Colleen.
That's me.
That is, yes, that is the same movie. Yeah. So I still that's the original script was 75 pages long, and that's too long. So I had to whittle it down, but I felt like, and Tom can back me up on this, we did not do that script justice. We really didn't get the film finished, in all honesty. And that is another one of the projects that I do want to make. I want to do it properly. I'm going to flesh it out. I'm going to add to it. I've got to have that 75 pages around here somewhere. And yeah, that's what I was talking about. What Colleen is talking about is when we got Lauren Kaler drove 5 hours to audition for the part of Emily. And then we had Jackie, I don't remember her last name, she auditioned also for the part of Emily. Neither of them got the part, but when I had them in front of me in person separately, I had that movie springing up in the back of my head, and I was like, this is The Spirit of Mary Pickford, and this is Wicked. And I asked them, I had them come into the audition room because I wanted to see them next to each other. And my mind was pretty much blown. And so I said, all right, so this isn't about this project, but this is another project that I want to do. And I just gave them a brief synopsis and told them a quick rundown of the characters, and they both said yes. So yes, Colleen, that's the capstone that didn't get finished.
Yeah, I thought that's what that was when you were talking about it, because it sounded so familiar from that day.
Yep, that's what it is. Good call.
Other questions, folks? Cybelle, I thank you so much for spending time. Good luck on your project. I'm sure you and I and hopefully maybe you'll grab some other folks from here, possibly the crew. But as you know, any help that you need, you stay in touch with us.
Yep.
We appreciate it. Any final comments? Any final words of advice for our nascent filmmakers?
Just know that it's not for the faint of heart to do this. It's not going to be easy, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And you can do it, because everybody that I graduated from is working in the film industry. They're not writing and directing, but they're in LA, they're in New York, they're in Boston, and they're all working in some capacity or other.
And that's pretty hard to believe. I'll take it from me, because a
Yeah.
lot of my colleagues with whom I graduated, I jokingly try to make all of you say, with sincerity, do you want fries with that, or do you want that in a pump or a loafer before you graduate? But I think you'll all do pretty well. Cybelle, thanks very much.
Sure.
To everybody else who's been watching, thank you for joining us and hearing from our graduate, Cybelle Mandell, who is an independent filmmaker right now. Join us next week when we'll be speaking to another grad, Jennifer Dunnington, who is working with Martin Scorsese pretty regularly. So we'll have an opportunity to talk with her about all of that. Until then, thanks to Misty Kennedy and Mark Gempler for helping behind the scenes production of all of this, and we'll look to see you all next week.